Hey, what's up everybody? I'd like to welcome you to another Juce tutorial. And today what we're going to do is we're going to build upon the synth tutorial series that I've been doing the past couple tutorials. So what we're going to do briefly is we're just going to review what we did last time, and we're going to build upon that a little bit for this tutorial. So what we did last time is we used the Maximilian sound library to build a couple synth components. So we have a envelope that we built here in ADSR. And then we have an oscillator that we've called the wave, and that's operating at a frequency. We've also added the MIDI functionality so that when we press keys on our MIDI keyboard, that we're actually getting sound out, and that's being controlled by the ADSR. So just to go through the routing that we did, so we have a sine wave oscillator, and that's going into this ADSR that we're calling the sound. Pardon me. And then we have the sound outputting through our speakers. So now what we're going to do is we're going to get a little bit more involved in that we're going to actually start developing some UI elements. So we're going to start with the ADSR first, probably just the attack and release today, just for time's sake. And what we're going to do is we're going to set up UI elements. So we're going to set up some sliders where we're going to be able to control the parameters of our attack and release. Okay, and we have a couple different things that we need to assure when we're actually setting this up. So first of all, if you have followed along with our tutorials before, you will recall in the gain tutorial that basically we had two sides of the plugin. So we had the plugin processor where we had our kind of back-end DSP functionality, and the process block where everything is actually going out through the speakers. I'm looking for my process block at the moment. Where is it? Yeah. Hold on. Sorry about this. So here's our process block. So this is where everything's actually going out through the speakers. You can see that I'm calling from the synth voice class here, which I have an object of synth voice called my synth. That's actually outputting through the speakers. Okay, so we have a different kind of situation here because we have kind of three sides of the plugin that we need to really kind of route our variables from and to. So we have the plugin processor where we're doing all of our hardcore DSP processing. Then we have the plugin editor, which is where we have our graphical elements and our UI elements, sliders and dials that we're going to be controlling. And when we control those parameters, we want to relay all of that information to the plugin processor. Now we have this third part called synth voice, okay? And some of the DSP processing is actually happening here in this function that we call render next block. So what we need to do is we actually need to be able to pass these variables and these parameters around between these three classes, and I'm going to show you how to do that. And then on top of that, what we need to do is we need to have a way that we're able to relay this information to the host. So the host is our DAW, could be Ableton or Logic. And so if you've ever worked in a DAW before, you know that sometimes you want to make automation. So if you want one of your parameters to change over time, you need to be able to do that in the DAW, and the DAW needs to be able to recognize that. And I'm going to show you how to do that as well. Okay. So before we get started, I just wanted to let you know very quickly that we've got a discussion group. If you're not aware of it just yet, it's on a platform called Discord. And so we have an audio developer discussion group. We have about 70 developers in there now. And they're of all different levels and all different areas of expertise. And it's just a great place for developers from all over the world that are interested in audio and DSP to kind of come together and trade ideas and to ask each other questions, help each other out. And so if you haven't joined yet, I'd love to see you there and come and join. I'll put the link below. Also, for people that are just trying to get in touch with me, the messaging system on YouTube is a little bit crazy. So come just find me on any of the other social network platforms. I'm on Twitter at Audio Programmer, and then on Facebook and Instagram at The Audio Programmer. So come and say hi. So let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to go ahead and start with the plugin editor side. So we're going to start with the UI elements. So this is going to be kind of I think this might be a bit of a lengthy tutorial, but I think it might be better to do it this way because inevitably as I come up against problems, I think I'd like for people that are just getting into development or just kind of starting to see how I kind of think through the problem and, you know, how I try to just kind of work my way through it. So I think that might be a little bit more useful than if I just kind of give you a super edited version where I just kind of tell you what to do. I don't think that's very useful. So I hope you find that useful. If you do, or if you don't, just leave me a comment below. Let me know what you think. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. First thing that we're going to do, I'm going to refer to my API quite a bit in this tutorial, so I hope it's not too lengthy for you. So we're just going to go to the plugin editor header file. Okay, and a lot of this stuff is stuff that I've already kind of covered in past tutorials, so I don't want to harp on it too much. But I'll try to cover it briefly as much as I can. Okay, so I'm kind of nervous. I hope I don't mess up. So first thing that we're going to do is we're going to add a slider for our attack. So we're just going to start off by making an attack slider, see if we can get that working and kind of routing through in the right direction. So I'm going to make a slider that's called attack. And then what we're going to do is we need to inherit from the slider listener class. Listener. So I'm just inheriting here from the slider listener class, and that's to relay that if the slider value gets changed, we're just going to relay that information over to the processor so that it knows that we're making a change. Okay, so in here in private, I'm just going to declare a slider. I'm just going to call it attack slider for now. So then I'm going to create, okay, so if we go back into our header file, if we go into our slider listener class, as we coincidentally happen to be on, you'll see that it has a pure virtual function. And we know it's a pure virtual function because we have this equals 0. So what this means is that if we're inheriting from this class, we need to actually declare this somewhere in our implementation. So I'm going to just go ahead and do this void. I think it's called slider value changed. Value changed. Slider pointer. We got a pointer to our slider. We're going to call override here because this is a pure virtual function. And we're going to override that with our own implementation. So then we're going to go down here. We're going to go void Juce synth framework audio processor editor slider. So here we're just going to implement this. Okay, and then I can just say slider pointer slider. And I'm just going to leave that blank for now. Okay, so I'm going to try to build this. I don't know if it's actually going to build at this point. But okay, cool. So we got build succeeded. I'm going to frequently do that just to make sure that I'm kind of keeping on track. Just going to leave the window size the same, not messing around with that for a while. So we called this attack slider. So I'm going to start declaring some things here. Attack slider. So we're going to need to set the slider style. So it needs to know what slider style it is. So we're just going to call it slider style. And then linear vertical, I think we're going to call it. My autocomplete is testing me, seeing if I know what I'm talking about. Then we got attack slider set range, I think it's called. Oh wow, it's really not helping me. So I'm just going to go over here to the API here, just check this out. So here's our slider So I think it's called set range. Set range. And we have here double new minimum, new maximum. So set range, I'm going to put this 0.1 for the minimum, and then for the maximum, I'll put it at 5,000, which is 5,000 milliseconds. Okay. Then what else here? I'm just going to refer to some notes here. So we need to set the text box style. Set text box style. So we could say slider text box. Wow, it's really not helping me today, is it? I think it's called text box below. I'm just going to make this read only. And then I'll just make the width of it, I don't know, 20 pixels. And then the height of it, 10 pixels, maybe. Okay. Then what else we got here? We did set range. We're going to set an initial value, attack slider, set value. I'm just going to put it at 0.1. We need to add it and make it a child of our component. So attack slider like this. So this is stuff that I've already covered in past tutorials and stuff. So I need to make it a listener. Add listener. Do I got that right? Add listener this. So I'm just going to build this real quick, make sure I got this all right. So linking up. Okay, cool. Build succeeded. Cool, that's fine. I'm not going to worry about really where the UI elements are placed too much, because I can worry about that in a later tutorial, because I think it'd be good just to discuss that for one full tutorial. So we're going to set the bounds on this, and then I'll just put this at 10, 10, and then the width will be, I'll just put it at 20. The height I will put at 50, and we'll just do it like that. Okay. So is there anything else that I've missed here? So I've drawn it. I've made it visible. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to compile this real quick, make sure that it's actually showing up. And here's our host. Okay, then I'm just going to double click on this. And then if I bring this in here. So here it is. I'm going to make it just a little bit bigger. It's a bit small right now. So let's see. I will make this 100, and then I'll make it 40 wide. Okay, just try that now. Just make sure that we have a little bit of space to work with. So here we go. That's a bit better. Okay. I'm not going to worry about this here. Something I don't really want to harp too much on it. So I'm just going to take this out for now. Okay, so that's great. So now what we can do is we can have a look at what we need to do to get this into the processor first. Okay. So for now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a public variable. I don't need to call it, I'll just call it float, attack time. Okay, just for now, what I'm going to do, I think I'm going to handle this differently if I remember right, but for now I'm just going to set this to a variable and so I can pass this information on. Okay, but I think that I'm going to actually handle this differently through the value tree, but we're just going to check it. We're going to check it out here. So we need to say if slider is equal to attack slider, then we need to set the value of attack time to our slider value. So we can do that via access to the processor. Okay, so we just have the processor object here. I've discussed this in a past tutorial in case you don't know what I'm referring to. So I can actually say processor dot attack time equals attack slider. And I think I need to use the arrow operator here because it's a pointer. Get value. This sounds right. This sounds right. So let's, oh, it's not a pointer. Okay, so do I just do this? Let's try that again. Okay, so that compiled fine. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to actually go back over here to the processor, and then I'm going to go to my attack time, and I'm just going to make sure that that's actually coming through. Okay, I'm going to actually do this in my audio thread. I know this is a no-no, but I'm just doing it just strictly for the reason of just making sure that the value is actually coming through. So we need std cout attack time std and line. And so what we should see, hopefully, is when I modify the slider, hopefully it should modify the attack time. So let's hope that I don't mess this up. So it's a weird value because I haven't initialized it yet. But here we go. Okay, great. So it's fine. As you can see, it's doing it. So it had that weird number there at first because I didn't actually initialize it at first, but I'm not, I can actually do that here in the constructor. Okay, so if I use an initialization, I can say attack time 0.1 F, and that should be fine, I think. Okay, we're just going to make sure that that initializes fine. Okay, going to do this again. Just go back here. So now we have it initializing to a nice value here. And then you can see as I move the slider up and the slider down that it is correctly modifying the value, which is cool. But useless because I don't think that we're actually going to use it anyway. But now I can get rid of this, so all of my DSP guys can finally breathe again, because I can't have a message in the audio thread. So that's fine. Okay, great. So now I think what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take a dive into the deep end with the audio processor value state tree. Audio processor, I always forget this. Audio processor value tree state. I always get this name confused. So audio processor value tree state. Okay, so this is going to be fun. This is going to be fun to implement. I always have a it always seems to be an adventure when I implement this. So hopefully we can get through this without too many hitches. So what we can do is we can say audio processor value tree state. We're going to do an object here. I'm just going to call this tree. Okay, and I think, does it need to be a pointer? Oh man, I'm terrible. I'm probably terrible for not knowing this. I'm just going to go ahead and initialize it here and then go back if I need to change it. So I can just say tree here. I don't think it needs to be a pointer. Wouldn't make sense too. So processor to connect to is actually a pointer to this, okay, to this processor. And then I can make this a null pointer because we don't need to worry about a undo manager at this point. Oh no, it's giving me an error. What's going on here? Is it going to go away? Ah, yes. Success. Great. Fantastic. So far so good. I haven't gotten stuck yet. Okay, so that's fine. So now we need to actually create. So what we need to do at this point is we actually need to link the purpose of the audio processor value tree state class is to link up values that are happening between the slider and the processor, and then to relay all this information to the host and to do this kind of in a neat package. So we have this function here. We need to do create. I feel like I'm going to mess up here. I hope not. So it's going to be tree.create and add parameter. Okay, so then I'm going to just call this attack. And then I'm going to call this attack with a capital. And attack with a capital again. This is all stuff I went through in the gain slider tutorial, just in case you're wondering where I'm getting all this from. So I don't want to take too much time on any one kind of thing. Okay, so here we need to create a normalizable range object. So normalizable range, this needs to be a float. Just going to call this attack param, and then I'm going to make this a range between 0.1 and 5,000. And so what I believe this does, I'm a little bit confused about this, but I think what it does, because I think some hosts, when they're notifying to the host, I think that it needs to be normalized between a range of 0 and 1. So I think what it does is it takes this range that I'm normally having of between 0.1 and 5,000 and is remapping it to 0 and 1. So if I'm wrong about that, somebody let me know so I can kind of correct that. So here in my normalizable range part here, I can just put attack param, and then default value is 0.1 float, and then these last two don't have to be anything, so I'm just going to put them to null pointer and null pointer. Okay, just going to try to build that, see if it's going to complain or not. I think we're okay. Okay, so far build has succeeded, so that's fine. And then what we need to do is we need to go to the editor, and then we need to do this on the other side. Remind me how I need to do this. Oh boy, I hope I don't get stuck here. So create an add parameter because I need to let it know. So I need a way to get to the actual ID of the processor. So I need to actually let it know that the slider that I'm controlling is controlling this parameter. And I can't remember how to do that. Ah, here it is, slider attachment. That kind of makes sense. So this is what we need. We need a slider attachment. So here I can say so audio processor value tree state, slider attachment, and then I'll just call this slider attach, slider tree. Okay, and then we need to go to the editor, and then how is this handled? Let me try to remember. So let me go back here. What did I call it again? So go slider tree. Okay, so let's just go to our. Okay, so if I remember right, I need. Okay, what's going on here? Okay, so this needs to be. Doesn't this need to be a scoped pointer? This needs to be a scoped pointer, doesn't it? So let me go back here. I'm just going to comment this out for a second. Yes, because we need to declare it as new. Slider tree equals new. Okay. So what I can do is I can use a scoped pointer here. Once again, this is stuff that I've gone through in my past tutorials. So let me see if that builds. I just want to make sure I got the syntax right. Build failed. So let me see here. Let me think. 1 second. I'm just going to actually look at. I'm going to actually cheat and actually look at my one of my other files here. So audio. So scoped pointer. Slider value. So why? Oh, it needs a capital. Oh, these little things. Okay, so let's try that again. Okay, so that's fine. Okay, so let's go back to our editor now. So I believe this needs to say slider tree equals new audio processor value tree state slider attachment, and then we need a state to control. So the state to control is processor dot tree. The parameter ID we called attack, and then the slider to control is attack slider. Okay, so let's just try this. I hope this works. So it's linking, so far so good. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, just to make sure that this is, so just to remind you what this is doing, this is actually taking, and it's linking the parameter that we've got with this slider, and it's linking it's calling it attack, and it's linking it with our processor side. Okay, and on this value here that we called with tree create and add parameter. Okay, so now what we could do is we could go, let's see, we can actually go down here and we could do, I'm going to do this again, and let's see, I just want to make sure, I kind of want to make sure that this is happening, that this is working properly, but I'm not going to worry. I'm not going to worry about that for now, because I'm afraid that I'm going to get tripped up. Okay, so I don't want to get tripped up. So okay, great. So now, so I feel pretty confident that we've got the editor side and the processor side linked up properly through the value tree. So now what we need to do is we need to have a way to link it from the processor. So we need this value. So we need to get the value from this parameter ID attack, and then we somehow need to get that into here. Okay, so it needs to get the attack time from the slider, and it needs to actually put that in here, and then it needs to be able to modify our attack time on our ADSR. Pardon me. So what we need to do that is we're going to make a new method here. I'm going to do it right below this can play sound. I'm just going to call it get param. So I'll go void get param. Now the reason that I'm doing this is because I basically need a function to call in my process block, wherever my process block is. Okay, so I need a function to call in my process block where it will actually get the value from my value tree, and it'll actually relay it over to my synth voice. Okay, so the way that it does this, and this just happens to be because I've done this before, is through a pointer. So if we go through our audio processor value tree state, if we scroll down here, we've got this parameter that says get raw parameter value. So what I can do is I can say basically get raw parameter value. I could put attack in here, and then what it does is it returns a pointer to a floating point representation. So it'll basically give me the floating point number of whatever that value is. Okay, so that's how we're gonna get the value from our parameter in our tree over to synth voice. So when I have this function called get param, I'm going to actually call this a float pointer attack. Okay, so that's why I'm setting that to a pointer there. Okay, so what we can do here, why is it giving me an error? Let's see here. Is it gonna, okay, it's just a false alarm here. Okay, so that's cool. So now what I can do is I can actually take this, I'm actually going to just remove this attack time, and I'm going to put this here. I'm just going to say here. So what I could do to denote, dereference the value at the location that attack is pointing to, is I can just use that star and I can call that attack. Now, one thing that I'm going to note here, if I just said here env1.setAttack, it's not going to come up with it. Oh yeah, you're going to see that it's a double. So I'm not sure if I need to do this, but I'm just going to cast this as a double just in case. Okay. So I've just got, because this is a float, okay, envelope1.setAttack takes a double as an argument. So I'm just casting this as a double. I'm casting this float pointer as a double just to make sure that there's not going to be any sort of communication problems there. Okay. So now what we need to do is we need to find a way to actually get this and to relay the information from the plugin processor. Okay, and the way we do this is through a little trick that I can't take credit for. It's a bit of code. I think I might have seen it in the plugin example maybe, or maybe in my friend Leon Fedden's example of an FM synth that I saw a while back. But basically what he does is he uses a dynamic cast in order to a dynamic cast of synth voice. So when the voice returns with the dynamic cast being true, then basically it relays the information. And you'll see what I mean in a second here. So let me see if I can get this right the first time, hopefully. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a for loop. We're going to call it, so we have this synth voice called the synth voice object called mySynth. So I think it's get num voices and then I++. I'm just going to compile this real quick, just make sure I've got the function right, that I've remembered it right, so that's fine. Okay, and then what we're going to say is if the voice is dynamically cast as a synth voice, then relay the information. Okay, so if my voice or my synth, is this right? Oh no, synth voice, what I call it? My voice. So we have this pointer, it's called my voice. We want to make sure that it's dynamically cast as a synth voice pointer. Okay, so if my voice equals dynamic cast, and then here we need to put in the type of cast that we're talking about, synth voice pointer, and then then we need to get the voice itself, my synth get voice, and then the voice that we're actually pressing. Okay, so that's a little bit confusing, kind of confuses me as well, and to be honest, it's a piece of code I hate to say this, but I don't fully understand it, but I can see that it works, and if somebody has a really good explanation for this, I'd love to hear it. But I will admit it's not a piece of code that, and it seems that it's not a piece of code that this understands as well, because I'm not. Oh yeah, this is just one of the things. You can place the parentheses around to silence this warning. So that's the way that we do that here. One thing here, because my muscle reflex automatically put a double equals in there, do not do that or else it won't work properly and you'll get a weird error. So make sure that's not a double equals. Okay, so it's just saying if my voice is dynamically cast as a synth voice object, which it would be, hopefully, then so if it's cast as a synth voice, then get the voice, and then from there we get the parameters. Okay, so that kind of makes sense in my head now, and I hope it makes sense to you as well. So now we need to go back into synth voice, and we need to call up get params. So my voice this is a pointer, so we need to use the arrow operator there rather than just my voice.get param. And then here is where it gets a little bit kind of tricky, because you're like, okay, well, what do I put here? And remember when I said that we have this get raw parameter value that's a float pointer there. So that's what we need. Okay, so we need to put tree dot get raw parameter value. Okay, and the one that we need is by the ID. We just call that attack. And I think that's right. I'm just going to trust my instinct here and say that that's going to build fine. So I think that this is all right, and I think it's all linked up properly. So I'm just going to check now. Hopefully it will not blow my ears out, because that would not be good. Okay. Okay, so we've got sound, which is good. It hasn't blown our ears out. That's a great start. Okay, so if I put this up to 5,000, yes, it works. Oh, I can't believe I got it right, working right the first time. I cannot believe it. Okay. Okay, so you hear that it didn't initialize properly. We can fix that. That's cool. So that's no problem. But you can hear that it actually works. I cannot believe I got this working the first time properly. That's made my day. Yeah, so now we have our attack. Okay, so now we heard that it didn't initialize properly. Okay, so I'll just show you a demonstration of that again really quick. So we just need to take a look at that. I think that should be an easy fix, but we'll just take a look. Okay, so if I plug it in, and then I'm not actually going to touch the UI, because the UI, if I open the UI, it might relay the message of what the correct parameter is, but I don't want it to do that just yet. So let's see what it sounds like now. Okay, so it started really quick. And did it initialize properly? Yes, so it seemed to initialize properly that time. Okay, and then we got the parameter, that's fine. Okay, so I'm just going to do this just to make sure that it initializes properly. So if I go into synth voice, I think if we go here and we just make a real quick constructor, I think that this will make sure that it actually initializes properly. So what I could do is I could just go. Oh, I don't have a separate variable that I've done here. I've done it just in here. Now, do I need to? I don't know if I need to. It seemed like it initialized. Let me just try it one more time just to make sure that it initializes properly. And then if it doesn't initialize properly, I'll go through the trouble of taking this and taking the pointer and making another variable. But let's just try it again here real quick. Okay. And then, yeah, it initializes fine. Okay, great. So let me just pull this here, just make sure it works again. Okay, that's great. Okay, so shall we quickly, while we're here, shall we just try to set up the whole ADSR right quick? Why not? So this will be just a little something at the end of the video here. So let's just set everything up I don't know. It might take a little bit of time. I'll do one more. So just for kind of just to kind of really emphasize it in. So we'll go ahead and we'll just kind of start from the beginning again. Okay, just so we can like emphasize the lesson of the day here. So I'll make another slider here. We'll call this release slider. Okay, then we'll go to the plugin editor. And I could probably make this piece of code a lot more elegant, but I'm not going to worry about that for now. So processor. I don't even know if I need to do this because we have this actually happening in the tree, but I'm just going to do it just for the heck of it, I guess. Release slider, get value. Okay, I need a variable called release time on my plugin processor. Float release time. Don't actually think I need those two variables there, but I'm just going to put them there because I did that the first time and I don't want to mess this tutorial up this late in the game. So let's see. So now I need to go back to my processor here, and we need to go back up to add another parameter. So we can just call tree, create, and add parameter. And then we can just call this release. And then I'll just do it with a capital. And with a capital again. And we'll do a release param. And then I'll just create that here. So we'll just call this normalizable range. Don't like to just copy and paste because I want to feel like I'm in the matrix like that. So we'll just make this as the same thing as the attack, I think. 5000 0f. And then default value will just be 0.1f. And then this will be null pointer again. And null pointer again. Okay. That's fine. So that looks good. And then where are we? So now we need to change our get param. So this should be float attack, float release. Okay, then we can just take our release time and I could just set this to cast as a double. We're going to dereference the value that releases, and then we need to go back to our processor. We need to go back down to our process block because that's where we're calling get param. So we need two arguments here. So we got tree. So we got the one for our attack. Then we got get raw parameter value, and then we'll just call this release. And then we haven't created a slider yet, so we need to create a we've got a release slider that we've created. We just need to set the parameters now. So we can call this release slider, set slider style, slider style, linear, vertical. Then release slider, set range, 1f, 5000 f, release slider, set value 0.1 F, then release slider, we need to add it as a listener, and this, add and make it visible. Release slider. And then we need to take care of our value tree here. Ooh, 1 second here. So we need, let's see, do I need 2 separate objects here? Hold on a second here. So just want to make sure I get this right. So we got scoped pointer. Do I need 2 separate scoped pointers here? I'm going to just, no, it's going to need 2 separate ones because otherwise it's going to be just going to the same thing, right? I'm going to just try it as one, but I think that it needs, yeah, because it's going to be setting it equal, it's going to be setting it equal to 2. What's it saying here? Oh, I forgot a T. Yeah, you can't set it equal to 2 things, right? I'm just going to try it, but I'm just processor slider attachment processor dot tree. Release slider. Oh boy. I really feel like that needs to be 2 separate objects there. I'm going to make it two separate objects. 2 separate pointers here. So I'm just going to call this, let's call this attack tree. And then I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to call this release tree. I just hope this doesn't mess up this tutorial at this late point. So release and attack set slider style. So what's going on here? Is this not right? Okay, it's giving me an error. So where are we here? Okay, yes, that's what so this needs to be like that. Okay, let's try again. Okay. So, okay, cool. So now I'm just going to go back to my processor block, just make sure that I have this all initialized correctly. So that's tree, get raw. Okay, so that's fine. Go back to here. So this looks all right. So, okay, here's the final check here. So I really hope this works. And if it doesn't work, I'm not going to do this tutorial again. So I hope you guys can forgive me for not getting it all right if it doesn't work out. Okay. Didn't blow our ears out. Good. Okay, seems like it initialized correctly, which is awesome. Okay. Oh, I didn't draw it. Oh, I need to draw it. I haven't drawn it yet. So let's go back to the editor. So we just need to set the bounds. I'm just going to make this static. I can come back to this later and we can do like a more dynamic GUI. But this is just going to be a quick and dirty. So we could put it, let's say, I don't know, so if it's 40 across, 10, so that's 50. So I'll just make this 60, 10. I'm just going to put it kind of anywhere. Sorry about this. I just want to get this done and set you guys off as soon as possible here. So if you stuck with me this long, I'll give you kudos for sure, because this is definitely a test of endurance. So I'm sure some of you probably have my voice on fast forward right now. So here we go. So let's try, and then did it draw? Okay, so it didn't draw it all the way across the screen. So let's try it now. Okay, so let's try the attack. Okay, now let's try the release. Yes, it works. I can't believe it. Can't believe I got it all working pretty smoothly. Nice, 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 nice. Oh, great. Okay, so I'm going to end it there while I'm still ahead, and I've and I haven't messed it up. So I really hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. I've really put a lot of work into it. So if you can, take the time to like and say something nice, because I really enjoy hearing nice things said about the hard work that I'm doing here. So that's always good to hear. And I'm going to end it here. And next time we'll add some more. I'm not sure if we're going to add some more, or I can just maybe start going into more of the UI stuff, just kind of how to dynamically do that. I think I'll probably lean towards doing that, since you don't want to see me making more sliders and dials and stuff. So next time I come back, I'll probably have a lot more parameters kind of laid out, and that we can talk about UI and dynamically resizing and how to make an effective UI. So I really hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you next time.